It's Wednesday of the Passion Week, and Jesus has sent his disciples away from Bethany, about another 2-mile walk into Jerusalem, to go and find a place to hold the Passover feast or the Passover meal with his disciples. And so this would be a very tender moment with his disciples, but Jesus is making preparations, so he sends his disciples on ahead into Jerusalem to find a man who had an upper room where they could meet. In the upper room, several things happened on that day. Jesus was going to meet, and according to Galilean time, he was going to eat the Passover with his disciples. The Bible helps us to understand that he did that so that he might fulfill all righteousness. And so, being that he would be the Passover lamb, he first ate the Passover with his disciples according to the Galilean calendar and time. And there in that upper room, it's a special place. And I want us to just pause and consider this, that in the middle of a week that was going to be the worst week of Christ's life, Jesus was getting alone with his disciples. He had already done that in Bethany with Simon the leper. He has already done that with the woman there who broke the alabaster box of ointment over his head and anointed him. He'd already been spending time with people, but now he pulled away from all other people and he spent time with his disciples, his followers. And it's just a reminder to us that in the time of despair, in the time of trouble and trial, how important it is to get alone with Jesus. Get to the upper room, get where Jesus is, and hear his voice and let him speak into your life. Let him guide you in what is truly important during that time. And you know, the upper room may be a different place for you. It might be a study in your house. It might be a place outside of your house during the nice weather. But the upper room, wherever it is for you, is a time, a place where you meet with Jesus and hear his heart. You hear his heartbeat. You hear his voice saying, "Peace, be still." And he's calming you. And that's what the disciples were doing with Jesus on Wednesday. They were up in the upper room. Now, as Jesus was there, he taught 2 lessons and really demonstrated these lessons from his own personal life. And I really want us to catch this as we consider Wednesday of the Passion Week. And I want us to realize there, as they just ate supper, and before Judas went out to do his dastardly deed, the Bible helps us understand that Jesus rose up from supper, he took a towel, and he took on the job of a servant and began to wash his disciples' feet. A beautiful picture. And the first lesson that we see Jesus teaching his disciples is this: be a servant. Be a servant. It's not about being the greatest. It's about being a servant. And Jesus taught that to his disciples. We read of that story in John chapter number 13. A beautiful picture where the disciples who had planned for that meal should have prepared to wash the feet as they came, as everyone came into the room. That would have been customary, that would have been proper, but they did not. And so Jesus himself stood up as the Son of God, as their master, as truly their Lord. And he personally washed our feet, and he demonstrates to us, and he teaches a lesson there in the upper room: be a servant. In this time, let's hear the voice of the Master and look for opportunities even this week to be a servant to others. It's not about being the greatest, it's about being a servant. That is truly great in the eyes of the Lord. The second lesson he taught them was of sacrifice when he instituted the Lord's table or the Lord's Supper. So after the Passover has happened, he's washed the feet, Judas has now gone out to betray him. And there with the 11, Jesus begins to institute something that would become a memorial. It would become a picture, something that we still observe today. Now, as we think of the Lord's table, we sometimes call it communion. But the point of the Lord's table is that it was not established as a means of grace or as a means of salvation. It was established as a memorial. Jesus gave it to his followers, to those that believed on him, as a way of remembering the sacrifice he would make on their behalf. Now, his sacrifice would happen on Thursday. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But right now, Jesus is establishing something that would help them to remember when he had gone back to heaven. It would help them to remember, hey, Jesus died on the cross for my sins and for the sins of the whole world. It was a memorial. And so Jesus gives another lesson by what he is teaching and what he is demonstrating, and that is of sacrifice. And it's important to be a servant. It's also important to want to and to be ready to sacrifice for the needs of others. Jesus sacrificed his own life. He shed his blood for your sins and for mine. He shed his blood so that we can be called the children of God. What an amazing thing. And so there in the upper room, so much was going on. Jesus was having a tender moment away from all the hubbub, away from all the scurry in Jerusalem, away from all the threats and the refusal and the rejection of the Pharisees. He's there in a quiet upper room with his disciples, teaching them lessons, spending time with them. Friends, today, get to the upper room, wherever that is. Get to the upper room. Hear the heartbeat of Jesus. Let him speak into your life. Let him encourage you. Let him lead you along. Boy, it's a wonderful thing to be in the upper room with Jesus.